Vainu webinar. Topic today will be trigger events. And my name is Mikko, one of the co-founders of Vainu and also involved in some other software and IT companies. Workflow triggers and trigger events. It's a topic Pietari, another co-founder of Vainu, and myself, we discussed it a lot already back in 2014 before we launched Vainu. Back then we were selling software products both in the Nordics and also in the US, and we definitely did not have any lack of good companies to go after. It was a product that we were able to sold it to quite a few companies, and we had lots of companies in our ideal customer profile. But I remember we always had this one thing in mind, that when you have a lot of companies to go after, you sort of want to know what are the companies that you should go after today. Like, what are the best top 10 companies, knowing them and also knowing the reasons why to do business with them today. And that was the idea we had in mind, and we then of course looked what type of services are out there, and we couldn't really find any provider who could give us that list of top 10 best companies to go after when we did sales. So then we decided to build it ourselves, and we launched Vainu. I can see that some of the people in the audience, you have been Vainu customers and Vainu users quite a few years, so you know this. But workflow triggers and these trigger events, they've been part of Vainu offering more or less from day one. And Vainu was one of the first companies that introduced these trigger events for salespeople and account managers back in 2014. But let's start with definitions and what is a trigger event and what we mean by trigger event. So it's really any change that happens in a company, or any change in company data point, or mention in a news article, press release, job opening. It's a trigger that leads to an automated action in a workflow. So there's something changing, and that triggers an action. For example, somebody announcing a new decision maker, appointing a new decision maker, that triggers an action. Somebody emails or gives that new person a call. It's really an opportunity to reach out to companies at the right time, and also with exactly the right message. And why this is important, we all know that change often creates an opportunity, and changes create opportunities. And there's a lot of things going on and happening within companies. Some of them expand, they hire new people, they announce acquisitions, they merge, they expand revenues, they go up and down. So a lot of things going on all the time within companies. And basically any of these events can then trigger a need for a new product or new service. And that's really why we believe trigger events are so useful for salespeople, that they can systematically reach out to the right companies and right people at the right time. And all in all, if we look at like studies and research being made in the field of sales and marketing, it's pretty obvious that there's a big first mover advantage. Lots of the B2B sales and business goes to the vendor who is moving first, is able to identify a need first, and of course fulfill that one. And basically it's the same message in all these studies. They all highlight the importance of being fast, being personalized, and ability to automate things. And many of the salespeople, if they feel that they're not successful, or if they are being asked what to improve, they very often talk about these things. They would like to see more relevant leads, they would like to see more automation, or they would like to receive help that helps them to personalize the messaging. So here's an example of a trigger event, and we have plenty of them. So this is an example expanding the business. So any company announcing or expanding their business, maybe they open up a new office in a new city, or maybe it's even a new country, or they introduce new product lines or new services and solutions. So they expand their existing business. Then it's very important to always think what each change and what each trigger indicates. Because of course, when they, for example, in this case, when someone is expanding to a new location, new country, then it's often maybe a very good lead for a recruitment firm. They might need new individuals in that new location. Maybe if they receive that trigger event early enough, the company that is expanding might need office space. They might need some help establishing the business in that new place. If it's a new country, there's lots of companies most likely helping others to establish the business in that new destination country. So change in this case creates lots of needs and lots of opportunities for other companies. And then it's very important when we implement trigger events in our sales workflow that we use that information when we reach out to these companies. So trigger always trigger event triggers an action. Sometimes it might be a marketing related action. When some company is expanding, maybe you want to add all the existing contacts you have within that company. You want to add them into a certain list in HubSpot and then drive personalized ads for them. Or if it's a sales related action, maybe someone is giving them a call. So there's a trigger event, and that leads to salesperson reaching out. And then once they speak with the individual, and if the person gets interested into the offering, then of course you can land a meeting or add the person into nurturing email queue. One thing that what we have seen is very important when using trigger events is to really personalize and use that information when you speak and engage with these opportunities. This is a classic example. There's a new sales director being appointed. What we always do, because sales directors and VP sales and these titles are obviously good people for us to speak with. We provide services for them. So when we use trigger events and there's a new sales director, it always launches an automated workflow. We might send out an email and of course, first of all, congratulate them on the new role. But we also want to use some of the content that we have, so that it's not only about us trying to sell to them, but also us helping them out. We have created lots of good, valuable content for these individuals who are in that moment starting in a new role as a sales director. We have created ebooks about good sales technologies to use. We have created templates for tracking activities, templates for conducting sales one-on-ones. There's lots of content about the typical first 100 days in that role. We have sales playbook templates, and we use these content pieces when we reach out, because even if the person is not interested in starting a discussion with us right away, at least we can provide something very valuable and helpful for them. And of course, when they engage with this content, they often also end up in our contact database, so that we can then start nurturing them and build relationship that way. So when we started developing these trigger events, we came up with quite a few different ones, and ended up pretty quickly developing more than 40 trigger events that users can then track. Many of them were based on us processing news articles, press releases, job openings, and so on. And these changes were anything. Some of them were related to financial development, companies filing new financial statements and reporting high growth numbers. Some of them were changes in their daily operations, both big and small acquisitions, expansions, companies going to new international markets, but also different type of changes, someone implementing a new web technology or registering a new website for the company. And today, now when we have been to business for 6 years, we have thousands of users using these trigger events and to identify good companies, and especially the right time when to speak with those companies, and also what are the topics to speak with them. But there are a couple of things that we feel we could do even better. One of them is the delivery method and destination, because when we analyze people using these trigger events, many of them receive these events in their inbox. So the delivery method is email. And I think if we want to build automation, we should also think if these trigger events should land in CRM, for example, instead. Another thing that we saw when we spoke with customers, we realized that these trigger events are very much they depend on the context and also the company and the products people sell. And we got new requests almost on a daily basis. Somebody saying that they want to have the alert when a company adds a new auxiliary name with the word restaurant in it, because for them that would be exactly the right moment to be in touch with those companies. While someone else was saying that only thing I need to know is whenever anyone is implementing a new application tracking system on the website, because it's an indicator that the company will most likely hire more people going forward. And then someone else was talking about the importance of identifying when a new specific language is being added to the website. Most likely that company was then providing some sort of services for companies doing business in Japan. So these requests, they kept coming in. And when we looked at them, we realized that almost all these trigger events, they can be formulated in the same way. And there are not actually that many things we need to know to customize and build these workflow triggers for any company. And this is really the sentence we use, or the template framework, whatever name we want to use for it. So if you're able to fulfill this sentence, then I think the odds are that you could benefit from workflow triggers and trigger events a lot. It's very simple. So first we need to define the change, the actual trigger event that is important for us. Then we also need to narrow down our scope to those companies that are our ideal customers, so that we only track changes within the companies that belong to our ideal customer profile. And then we need to define what is the action we want to create. Is it just an email that we send to our inbox, or could it be something else? Could it be a task that we create in the CRM? Could it be a lead that gets automatically created and assigned for a salesperson? Or could it be a message that goes out to Teams or Slack, for example? So those are number 3 and 4. What's the action, desired action when this type of change happens, and what is the destination for that action? And then the last one is that if we start automatically creating tasks and leads for companies, of course, then knowing what information to include. A little bit more than a year ago, I spoke with one of the well-known Nordic VC firms, investment company. They invest in the companies, and when he was explaining what they want to do with trigger events, I was very happy, because this is a perfect example how to formulate the need. They said, so it's an investment company, and they want to track certain companies, and whenever these target companies when they file their annual financial numbers. This company wants to know if a company meets something called the Rule of 40. The Rule of 40 is a financial KPI mainly used for scale-ups in the software space. It's simply a KPI that tracks revenue growth percentage and profit margin. And if those two numbers, when you add them up, if it equals 40% or is higher than 40%, then a company meets the Rule of 40. And this partner from the VC firm said that what I want to do, I want to automatically create a lead for the person who owns that account in Salesforce, so that we know that that's the right point of contact for us to be in touch, because then it's interesting for us to speak with them. Such a good example. But back then we were not able to deliver it, definitely not as a turnkey solution, even though we had all the data needed for that. So we had to first solve a few things. First of all, we wanted to build an ability to track any data point change that a user would like to track. And it's of course lots of volume when we track all these changes. So it's a huge volume, and we had to implement a new event streaming platform to do that. And then also we spent a lot of time and focus on the delivery method and destination. So we have existing connectors and integrations with CRM platforms, as many of you know, but we also wanted to understand in detail how salespeople, account managers, and also marketeers, how they would like to receive these changes and what would be the ideal destination. Is it really an inbox, or is it a collaboration tool such as Slack or Teams, or maybe it's one of the CRMs, Salesforce, Dynamics, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Web CRM, and so on. And since we've been working on that, then we can come up with even more specific examples. But it's good to keep in mind, they always follow exactly the same format. We need to know the change we're interested in. We need to know the group of companies you want to track, then the action you want to create, also the destination and what information to include. So someone might be interested in knowing all Finnish companies that if there's any change in marketing automation technology they use. If they've been using HubSpot in the past and they implement Marketo instead, that might be the change they're interested in. And then maybe they want to receive that information in their HubSpot, and they want us to send it to their HubSpot API and include certain other data points. And somebody else might be interested in simply knowing whenever there's a new SaaS company being identified in Sweden, and they want to add that information in Google Sheets with basic information such as company name and latest revenue figures included. So we have lots of these examples already 40 available in the platform, and even more if you use that sentence template. This time we also created a PDF deck that is available for you. If you check the webinar handouts, you can take that one with you and check if any of those examples are relevant for you. All in all, we're heading with workflow triggers, and I think what is happening also in terms of overall development in sales. Now when we are at Vaino able to track any data point change, it means that it's not only 40, it's not only a certain trigger event that can be tracked, but any data point change can act as a trigger event. And that of course expands the use case a lot, because basically you can think of any change and it's something that can be tracked. But it's super important when you start implementing workflow triggers that you have done the thinking first, that you know what are the important changes for you in your context. The webinar handout is definitely useful piece that most likely helps you out. And also that you narrow down the scope of companies that you want to track, so that you don't track every single company that is out there, but mainly ideal customers, companies that belong to your ideal customer profile. And then also this delivery method and destination, because only if it becomes a habit, it becomes a routine for salespeople and account managers to take action based on these workflow triggers. That's the only way to also see the results and make sure that they're not only nice to have notifications in the inbox, but that they actually create a workflow that can be tracked, because then you can also prove return on investment. And if we do this, then again, we're one step closer to what I believe most sales and marketing leaders want to do. They want to personalize at scale. They want to personalize because that is expected. Buyers expect personalized experience. Salespeople need to be relevant. They need to use data and show that there's a real reason why they reach out. But also, we all have high quotas and high sales targets to meet. It's also important to realize that we still need often high volume and high quantity. And that's why we talk about personalization at scale. What are the things you can implement that provide personalized approach without losing the volume and quantity that you need to be successful? And if you do that, this is a good starting point. It's the same sentence. So you can go to our website, one.com/workflow triggers. And also in the materials, you have this template ready for you. And if you want to discuss with us, of course, very easy to get in touch with us, speak with your account manager, contact us on the website, and we're happy to help. And if we manage to do it well, then I believe it's easy to agree with this statement that good luck and good timing, they're often actually the same thing. Just like good luck and hard work are often the same thing. In sales, good luck and good timing are often the same thing. And using workflow triggers is one way to make sure that you get lucky, meaning that you have good timing in sales. That's really it for today. Thanks everyone for joining. Recording will be available. Remember to take the handout with you. It's available here. And also, I believe you'll receive a short questionnaire afterwards asking feedback for the webinar. So please reply to that one so that we can always improve. If any questions, I'm also more than happy to connect on LinkedIn and other channels so we can keep the discussion going. Thanks a lot for joining this week, and good luck and good timing for sales this week. Thanks everyone, and have a great week.